We begin with the coronavirus situation here in Japan. 1 week after the state of emergency was lifted, the number of new cases in Tokyo and 3 surrounding prefectures appears to be on an upward trend. There have also been spikes in areas that were not under the emergency declaration. The Tokyo Metropolitan Government said on Sunday it had confirmed 313 new cases. That is 57 more than last Sunday. The tally topped 100 in neighboring Saitama Prefecture. The western prefecture of Osaka reported an even higher count than Tokyo at 323. The number has been over 300 for 3 days in a row. In Fukushima Prefecture in the northeast, the outbreak has put the medical system under strain. The occupancy rate for hospital beds remains at the highest level of the government's 4-tier alert system.
Nighttime entertainment establishments in regional cities are often concentrated in 1 or 2 areas, so cluster infections tend to occur at such places. The healthcare systems of these cities can easily be overwhelmed as they have a limited number of hospitals that can accept coronavirus patients.
Across Japan, 1,785 new cases and 29 deaths were confirmed on Sunday. Meanwhile, the ongoing vaccine rollout across Japan is beginning to ramp up, but Japanese researchers say that in the coming months, the country is likely to see only limited effects in curbing another possible surge of infections in Tokyo. Researchers at the University of Tsukuba used artificial intelligence to estimate how infections in the capital will spread after the state of emergency ended on March 21st. The study shows that without vaccinations, Tokyo would see a 4th wave reach a peak of 1,850 new daily cases in mid-May. If vaccinations begin for about 35,000 elderly Tokyo residents each day, the daily tally would be 1,650 at its peak in May. If vaccinations are expedited to cover more than triple the number of people, or 1% of Tokyo's population every day, the number of daily new cases at the peak would be reduced by around 110.
The efficiency of vaccination in Tokyo will be very limited in April and May, as the rollout rate will not be high enough. So it's important to continue basic antivirus measures, as they are the best ways to prevent infection.
In Japan, over 780,000 people have been vaccinated nationwide. Most of them are healthcare workers. April marks the start of inoculations for the nation's elderly. Police in Indonesia say a blast outside a Catholic church on Sunday morning has claimed at least 1 life, and they say that person may have been one of the suicide bombers. Police say the explosion occurred in Makassar, the capital of South Sulawesi province. Witnesses say 2 people who arrived on a motorcycle attempted to enter the church. When security guards stopped them at the gate, a blast occurred that injured at least 14 people. Indonesian President Joko Widodo condemned the church attack.
Terrorism is a crime against humanity that has nothing to do with any religion. All religions reject acts of terrorism, no matter the reason.
The attack came on the first day of the Holy Week that ends on Easter Sunday. The president urged people to remain calm. He said the government would ensure that everyone can worship freely without fear. The United States condemned China's sanctions against 2 American officials in a dispute over Beijing's alleged human rights abuses in the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. China's sanctions followed those imposed by the U.S., EU, Britain, and Canada. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken released a statement on Saturday. He said attempts to intimidate and silence those speaking out for human rights and fundamental freedom only contribute to the scrutiny of the ongoing genocide and crimes against humanity in Xinjiang. Blinken called on China to end the human rights violations and abuses against predominantly Muslim Uyghurs and members of other ethnic and religious minority groups in Xinjiang, and to release those arbitrarily detained. The United States agreed with the EU on Wednesday to resume senior-level talks on dealing with China. The U.S., its partners, and allies are increasing pressure on Beijing over human rights issues in Xinjiang and Hong Kong. 10 years since the Fukushima nuclear disaster, the prefecture still faces a perception problem. Tests on the food produced there consistently show almost all of it is well below the Japanese threshold for radioactivity. Even so, Fukushima's finest agricultural products are still unable to command premium prices. Up to now, outsiders have had few opportunities to find out the present situation. One local farmer is doing what she can to transform people's perceptions about her region.
Tereyama Sachiko owns a peach farm in Sukagawa City, Fukushima Prefecture.
For consumers, the fact that our products are safe isn't enough. They need to feel peace of mind. The real challenge is how to change that perception.
Even right after the nuclear disaster, peaches from Tereyama's region were well inside the Japanese safety standard for radioactivity. Even so, people refused to buy her fruit. She had no choice but to dump it. To counter this widespread misapprehension, Tereyama realized she needed people to get to know the real situation in Fukushima. Since the disaster, she's been sending handwritten messages to her customers to lend a personal touch to her shipments. For several years, she also used to send data from radioactivity tests showing her fruit were completely safe. Last year, Tereyama's farm began posting videos online to reach an even wider audience. And in May, a new building is scheduled to open, offering a residential farm experience. It's called Shinseki House, meaning House of Relatives. The aim is for people from both inside and outside the prefecture to participate in farm work, cook and share meals, and gain a better understanding of Fukushima.
Although we may be hurt by people's misperceptions, we are already back on our feet and moving ahead. I think it's more important to meet our customers face to face to create closer connections.
Connecting with people not just as customers, but as extended family. Tereyama and her fellow farmers are facing up to adversity by working to rebuild Fukushima's reputation.
Really known as Burma, where sources tell us that tell ABC News that police killed more than 100 protesters yesterday, making that the bloodiest day since people there started hitting the streets to express outrage over a recent military coup. And ABC's Julia McFarlane is on the story from our London bureau. Julia, good morning.
Good morning, Dan. Yesterday was Armed Forces Day, meant to commemorate the Army's role in protecting citizens. The military this morning facing international accusations of murder. More than 100 people, including children, are believed to have been killed after troops opened fire on protesters across the country, thought to be the bloodiest day since the coup last month. Soldiers have been filmed shooting at unarmed civilians, beating them in the streets. People speaking to media have said that they are being killed like chickens, even in our homes. Now, the bloodshed has been met with widespread condemnation. Last night, the Secretary of State Blinken said that he was horrified, while the US ambassador in Myanmar accused the security forces of murdering unarmed civilians, including children, the very people they swore to protect. Now, this morning, the defense chiefs of a dozen countries, including the US, the UK, Japan and Australia, they issued a rare joint statement condemning the military's actions. However, both Russia and China, who both sit on the UN Security Council and who both hold veto power, they sent representatives to the military's events on Armed Forces Day in a clear sign of support, making any UN-mandated action unlikely.
Security forces in Myanmar are reported to have fired on mourners at the funeral of a person killed in Saturday's democracy protests. At least 2 deaths have been reported at demonstrations. More than 100 protesters were killed on Saturday. An operation's underway in northeastern Mozambique to rescue foreign workers stranded in the coastal town of Palma, which has come under sustained attack from Islamist insurgents. Boats are being sent from the port of Pemba. The Suez Canal Authority says attempts to refloat the giant container ship blocking the waterway will continue around the clock. More tugs are expected to arrive later on. Two suspected suicide bombers have targeted Catholic worshippers coming out of church in the Indonesian city of Makassar, that's on the island of Sulawesi. The Islamist militants arrived by motorbike, detonating their explosives and wounding at least 14 people.